Hey, what's up? How's it going? My name is Mike Squires, and this is Couch's Podcast episode number 180. And my guest, Per Wiberg. Per has been actively playing music for years in a bunch of incredible bands. Um, Opeth, Spiritual Beggars, uh, Candlemass. You guys have seen me wearing my Candlemass shirt a bit in videos and stuff. You know, I'm a fan. That's rad. That's kind of the one that I didn't drill him about I don't want to drill him about any too much shit. We go over a lot of like his early stuff. Big Scenic Nowhere, of course. Um, and a bunch of other stuff. But most importantly, he's got a new EP that came out May. So just a month ago, called All Is Well in the Land of the Living. And it is killer. It is a heavy, doomy, gothy, psychedelic romp. And he's killer. He's fucking killer. What can I say? What the fuck do I know about killer? I just know what I like, and I like it. I ordered a copy. Mine's on my way. You should do the same if you can find one. I had to find one aftermarket. They're sold out, but you can buy CDs still if you're that kind of person, or stream the shit out of it. You know, Peril get a nickel for a million streams or whatever you get these days. I don't know what you get. I don't know anything. I had a great time talking with Per. It was a real pleasure. He is performing in two super killer, and I might add, am very ambitious upcoming Couch Riffs videos. So look out for those. You know, they're rad. That's what we do around here. We do rad. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I got up very, very early. He's of course, in Sweden. I am in New York. He's 6 hours ahead. So I woke up, at 4:30 to do this with him. So I was a little slow. I was a little slow. I'm not the fastest talking guy anyway, but I was slow. So hang in there. He's killer. Um, if you're enjoying the Couchless podcast or the videos that we make, please support us at Couch Riffs Patreon page, patreon.com/couchriffs. Um, that's the only place where you can download the audio of the cover songs we did. This past week, we put out a great cover of Higher by Creed. It's killer. That's what we do. We do killer. Um, and as I said, Per is in. You shut up over there. Per is in a couple of great upcoming videos. So if you are already supporting us at Patreon, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're considering it, go ahead. Don't let me stop you. Please let me encourage you. Your support goes directly towards the improvement, advancement, and future super killer plans that I have for Couchriffs. So I want to bring Couchriffs to your town. I want to do it with a live band. I want to do it on a stage. I want to do a podcast live in front of you. I want you to be there. I want to shake your hand. I want you to shake my guest's hand. I want to play music for you. This same style. It'll be like everything that Couch Riffs ever has been on a stage at once, which is to say, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but it'll be killer. It'll be killer. So thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank a new supporter, Variety Coffee Roasters, varietyroasters.com. Check out their coffees. I drink them every day. I use them at work. I love them. You can also get a co-branded Couch Riffs coffee mug. It says Variety Coffee on one side, Couch Riffs on the other. They're for sale on varietyroasters.com, or you go over there, buy 2 boxes of coffee, and you get a mug for free. That's a killer deal. That's a killer deal. Use the code Couch Riffs. One word. All one word. Couch Riffs. All right? Thank you, Variety Roasters. I love you guys. Also, thank you to River City Guitars. And Marvin guitars. You guys are familiar with this bad boy. That's the CN90, which we co-designed with Marvin. And you can find that. I think River City Guitars sold theirs. So unless you're the person that bought it, you snoozed, you losed. But you can still get one at the Guitar Shop, New York City. Back to River City Guitars. If you are in the market to sell a collection or a cool single vintage or used boutique piece of equipment, get in touch with them. Sales at sales.rivercityguitars. Fuck at gmail.com. That's right. Sales.rivercityguitars at gmail.com. And I would not send you anywhere that I wouldn't go. I don't know. Maybe you're getting the theme here. I will only, unless someone comes along, they would have to have a lot of money for me. They got to offer up a lot of money to Daddy. But I'm only offering up things that I use. I'm only sending you to people that I deal with. That's how I want to do it. That's how I do it. Okay. So River City Guitars. We love you. Thank you for your support. Hey, you guys know the golden rule? Treat people the way you want to be treated. All right? Don't be a fucking asshole. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you wonderfully. How you doing, man?
I'm just trying this blurred background for the first time in my life today.
It's very classy. It's very arty.
I try.
Very artistical.
How's
your day? It's early here, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Amazing that you want to get up in time to do this. So
I'm an early riser. Plus, I gotta get up, get my day rolling.
Yeah, of course.
These little guys here.
Ah, what's his or her name?
Oh, that's Mr. Big.
Okay, cool.
Also known as Biggie.
Biggie. Okay.
He can't.
Is there a Smalls as well? Or?
There's not. There's a bigger dog.
Okay.
But she doesn't run anything. This guy runs the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to start by saying I love your EP.
Ah, cool. Thanks a lot.
And I have a lot of questions for you. I don't know anything about how it came together.
Okay.
And I'd like to know that for sure. And I have questions about Sweden also.
Well, you just fire away.
I think I'm talking to the right guy because you made this record, so and you're in Sweden for people who don't know.
Very true.
Yeah. Why does Sweden have such a rich music community? Or how is it that it seems, at least from the outside, to be a hotbed for music and great music?
It's a difficult one, and it's actually a question that many people have asked around the world. I don't know. I'd say of all different musical genres, we got artists and bands that tend to tour a lot on on all different kinds of levels. So people notice that bands and artists come from Sweden. I don't know if this is exactly true, but I know that Swedes in general are people that like to travel, and maybe that's a reason why you have to put up with all of us traveling around the world all the time. Then why we have lots of, I think it's different depending on what generation you are. I think my generation, it wasn't costly for us to start playing in bands. We had youth clubs or youth houses that had gear, where you could just go and try it out, and if you liked it, you could go there, a couple of days a week or whatever, and use whatever was around,
And
gear
a youth
wise.
house was like a community center for teens.
Yeah, exactly, for all ages basically. And in most Swedish cities there used to be those around, and if they didn't carry gear, you could start like well, I'm not sure if this is the correct English word, but like a study organization.
Uh-huh.
So you would get funds to get gear if you had a bunch of kids that wanted to try and play music, or learn an instrument.
Right.
So I think that was a reason, because compared to a lot of sports, can be very expensive for families. If they got a few kids and they want to, I don't know, want to play hockey or whatever, that's usually an expensive sport just to start with.
There's a lot of gear involved with that.
Yeah, exactly. And
Talking to two guys with a bunch of pedals and keyboards and stuff.
so I guess in one sense, music was a cheapo thing for kids to at least try.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think that's the whole answer to why, but I think at least for my generation and people a bit older and a bit younger than me, it was a good thing, like a good opportunity to have.
There are a lot of things that I am jealous about. Friends of mine to the north in Canada, and in Canada, bands can get like rock bands get grants to make records.
It's the same over here as well.
It is.
Yeah.
And I mean, how encouraging is that? Because here, there's it's also a very large place to try to tour, as you know.
Yeah.
You go from the West Coast to the East Coast, there are plenty of places to play, but not many of them are densely populated, and the shows may or may not be well attended, especially if you're a startup band.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems like there's some greater opportunities to start a project from scratch.
Yeah, it depends. I guess it's more common on your side of the pond with private funding as well. Or I think North American bands and artists seems to be a lot more on the case with, like kickstarting,
Right.
for projects and stuff like that than we are over here. But I think it's just.
Is that weird for you to see? I'm about to do a Kickstarter and I'm just like, fuck, do I do this? But it's so common here. I mean, you see people, of course, in America, we have to do GoFundMe if a friend breaks their fucking arm, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, it's different. It's totally different mindsets and how you brought up and how it works,
Right.
I don't think I'm the one to say which one is better.
Sure.
I mean, it's just that I grew up here, so I'm used to how we do things over here,
Yeah, of course.
So it's a big question, that whole thing. And obviously I've been fortunate to travel a lot, so you sort of notice how it works in other places as well.
Right.
So.
What about the metal thing? How and why do you think that? I mean, from the outside, and for decades, Swedish metal is like, and Swedish just heavy music in general is.
Yeah.
It's put up on a pedestal in ways that it's, most other places don't get that kind of. People don't.
I think it's always been big in like the whole of Scandinavia, really.
Right.
Like then it's maybe a little bit different, like the sub genres. So if you compare the different countries and so on, Sweden has always had a good scene for extreme music for whatever reason. I can't say really. It's I mean, for like punk rock, hardcore, metal, extreme metal, there's always been shitloads of bands playing those styles of music, and there was always or still is, I guess, but a scene where people created the live circuit on their own, so to speak.
Right.
But that's the way it's been all around the world, I guess. For that kind of music, it's like something that you create on your own instead of relying on established venues and stuff like that. So Sweden had a couple of bands that were really important to extreme music early on, like Bathory, and also like Candlemass was early on with the doom side of things, and we had some. I mean, that's not. It's not popular music as such, but like the crust punk scene and the D-beat scene, those were like anti-C-Mex bands like that. They were and still are very influential in like the extreme hardcore and punk world, and I think those few bands were important in the 80s. And also, of course, like within the more mainstream heavy rock, we had Europe,
Right.
which is like a popular band all over the world. So,
And if you ask Ingve, he'll tell you he's the most popular also.
yeah, but he's more like he's probably the only guy we've ever had in Sweden that changed music history.
I mean, say what you will about it, the way he
Yeah, exactly.
presents himself to the world. That guy is a motherfucker. He is.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
You can't deny that. It doesn't matter what you think of his music or not, but he changed playing guitar as we knew it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously he's part of all that as well, because he was early, when he traveled to the States and made a name for himself. That was very uncommon for a Swedish artist or aspiring guitar player to do anything like that.
Right.
So,
As a kid, what was the first music that really caught your ear? Do you recall like what was the very first thing that caught fire with you? Was it pop music, or were you immediately drawn to heavier music?
well, I was very lucky because both my parents they don't play instruments, but they've always been into music a lot. So I grew up with lots of jazz. So later on, that music was never, what would you call it, difficult or something weird to me. So,
Right.
since I heard Coltrane and stuff since I was a kid, so that was just regular stuff. And then they listened to whatever what was popular, in the early 70s, late 60s or whatever, which would be, Neil Young, Carole King, the good stuff, basically.
Cat
So
Stevens.
I've been very lucky
Yeah.
in that sense. And, all the classics like Beatles, and not so much Stones, though, which I tease him for, obviously, since I'm a big Stones fan. So,
Yeah.
but that was the music I grew up on. And the first album or 7-inch that I got on my own was a Hendrix 7-inch when I was, I don't know, 5 years maybe old. And that was Freedom on one side and Angel on the other side. And,
From the Cry of Love? Is that
yeah,
the Cry of Love
exactly.
album? Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that record, man.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I've heard those songs a couple of times.
Yeah. You still have that 7-inch?
I do.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my dad nicked it from a DJ at a local bar.
Wow, good for him. Is your dad still around?
He is, yeah,
Give
and
him
mom
a
as well.
fucking high five for me.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Do you wow. And so was there a separation in your mind where where you decided like this is my music and that's my parents' music, or was
I
that
think that happens to every young teen, I guess. It's like but it was pretty cool though, because I remember when I kind of discovered Black Sabbath, as I don't like for real, when it started to get really loud in the little boy room with the door closed, and my dad said that, so you like this kind of music, yeah? Well, I might have something. And then he put on Visions of the Emerald Beyond with Mahavishnu, and like the first riff on that one is super heavy. It's like totally Sabbath style. And I was like blown away. Wow, dad has got, heavy music as well. So do 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 do. Then I was like, fuck.
I love Mahavishnu, and
Yeah.
I am ambitiously and foolishly going to make a Couchers video for uh uh a song I'm not going to say.
No. If it's that song, good luck to the drummer then.
No, it's it's not that song. It's a song that for the longest time I couldn't figure out what the time was. I was just like, no matter how I counted it, you know, I just couldn't sort it out. And turns out it's just straight. It's fucking
Ah,
it's straight time, man. And a
is it
lot of
from?
stuff, like a lot of like Yes songs are in straight time, but
Yeah,
they
they
dance.
tend to fool you.
Yeah, they dance around that stuff, and it just sounds insane. Although Mahavishnu, they're in all kinds of time signatures. But
Yeah, I
so
love that.
how old are you when you are introduced to Mahavishnu Orchestra?
That album was put out in, was it 74 or 75? So basically, well, it was a few years later. So let's say I was 10, 78.
I don't know if my 10-year-old mind would be able to would really be able to take that in.
But I just loved it because it sounded as heavy as Sabbath, you know, and it was like, obviously later on you learn how to appreciate all the
Right.
twists and turns and like the musicianship of it. But when you're 10 years old and you just started fiddling around with instruments on your own, it's just like, this is cool. you know.
I really like your dad. Already.
Yeah.
Let him know if he ever wants to come to the States, he's got a place to stay. Okay. Tell him
Yeah.
bring his iPod. Uh,
Yeah.
so when did you decide that you're gonna try to, play music?
Around the same time, in Sweden at the time, you had, in order to learn how to play an instrument at school, with a teacher, you had to go through a year. Don't ask me why. No one knows the answer to this. I've discussed it with many of my friends. You had to play the flute for a year. Like,
Really?
not like this flute, but just the regular
Oh, the
flute.
recorder.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. And
It's like a
which
little
was,
like a plastic flute.
no, it was a wooden one.
Okay.
I don't know the English name for it, but you had to do that for a year, and then you can choose, or at least at the little school that I was going to, between acoustic guitar or piano, or yeah, maybe saxophone or something like that. I'm not sure. So after throwing that fucking flute into the wall countless times for a year, I went with piano for some reason that I don't remember really. So I started learn playing the piano, and it wasn't, you know, when you start from scratch, basically. I'd never touched a piano before that. So you had to learn reading music, obviously. So, but that wasn't something that I was particularly interested in from day one. So it was more about listening to music or whatever, and you know, imitating melodies or whatever, and try to learn, because I thought all the classical music was so wimpy when I was a kid. So I wanted to play the blues, or, you know, stuff like
Right.
that I could figure out, so to speak.
Right.
So
So you were a bad student?
in one sense, yes,
In the
but
scholastic sense?
but my teacher, she understood that this is not going to work to force this dude, you know, to
Right.
learn how to play, I don't know, adagio or stuff like that. He's not going to care. He's just going to sit at home and fiddle around with, you know, the blues scale, so to speak, and see what comes out of it. And so she was kind of supportive in that sense, that she was fine with me writing music. Is maybe a big word for what I did in those early days, but you know, you came up with phrases or whatever, and she sort of, you know, if you do it like this, maybe it'll sound better, or you can put this phrase together with this one, and, you know, being supportive of a young boy, kind of, you know.
Right. That's great.
Yeah. So, but unfortunately, that, which I regret now in a sense, but it's never too late, is it, because I can't read music.
Right.
So becoming older and wiser, that is definitely something that I would have loved to learn. I can still do it, I guess, but so.
You know, I was also in school band and learned trumpet, but
Okay.
I can't read chords. I mean, you know, it's like dyslexia when I start looking at stacked notes.
Oh yeah, I know that doesn't work for me. But if you would ask me, can you play, you know, A minor, I would obviously know what that is,
Right.
and how you color chords and stuff like that.
Sure.
I would know that, but I can't read sheet music, you know.
As I sat here and I was kind of like in the back of my mind thinking about like that I don't want to go back and drag my ass through the flute subject anymore, really. But I was like, man, that is kind of weird. Although we played recorders in school here as well. And I dawned on me like, well, I guess you can only play very simple melodies, which makes it less daunting. You know, there's like maybe 2 octaves, right?
Yeah.
One of those things. And so that's a nice intro to it. And it's also, you know, this big, right? It's just
Yeah,
you
of
put
course,
it
it's
in your
not.
backpack. It's not like sending a kid home with a piano and having them fucking lose it, which they would totally do, right?
Yeah. But for you guys, it was it most common for you to start with like horns, kind of a trumpet, or because it's like marching music, isn't it? That's what it's from.
I was in symphonic band. If you,
Yeah.
you know, it's a stretch to call what we were doing symphonic. It was mostly cacophonic.
Yeah.
But man, bless grade school music teachers because they really have to endure a racket for the love of music, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think 4th grade is the year that you can enter into the school music program. I hope that school music programs are still happening here. I don't have kids, so I don't know.
No, but it's a good thing. It's as you say, really important to, and you know, learning how to play within a group of others. I mean, it doesn't have to be rock music or anything like that, but you know, if you have to, you know, consider what the other guy or gal next to you is playing, and it's like, okay.
Right. You know, I feel like I learned a lot from that time for sure.
Yes,
Were your parents stoked that you chose the piano just because they're jazz fans? Were
I
they
think so. I think so. Yes.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think so.
And then they
Uh,
were like, fuck, this guy's gonna end up in Deep Purple. We're fucked.
they were very much aware of Deep Purple at
Yeah.
an early age. So, because Deep Purple were very popular in Sweden or Scandinavia.
Well, they're fucking killer.
Yeah, yeah, amazing band. But I think a couple of those bands were definitely bigger in Europe or Scandinavia than they were in the States.
Right.
Like, I mean, you had Grand Funk, which is kind of similar, at least when they started to play Hammond organs in the band as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, yeah. Then I started fiddling around with guitars when I got, you know, early, like 13, 14, something like that.
So when did you join your first band? And it was a rock band, I'm assuming.
I played there was a school band with actually a US music teacher moved to Sweden for love, and
Mhm.
he was from the Chicago area, and he was the music teacher from when I went to class, you know, like 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and he was pretty cool and hip, and he started like a school band for more like a rock band version of a school band, and for those interested, and I was. So I started playing in that when I was 13, but that was, you know how it is, it's like you practice um, you know, in the spring or in the fall to make a to do a concert, you know,
Right.
before the holidays or whatever. So that's what we did, practiced once a week or twice a week or something like that. And but when I was 13, I had plenty of other friends that had started to play on their own guitars and stuff. So, you know, practiced in each other's basements, and it sounded spectacular, of course.
Of course.
And and the one family that was stupid enough to buy a drum kit to their son, I guess regretted that a lot. So
I mean, it's funny because I mean, everyone kind of secretly wants to be a drummer because it's so physical and kind of radical, and you're in the back, sort of like driving everything.
yeah,
You get the most like bit of kit all around you. It's amazing, except for at load in and load out time, right? Nobody wants to be the drummer then. Nobody even wants to be the drummer's friend. But in certain circumstances, I mean, I know that you play Nords, but before before you know, great organ sims came along,
yeah,
you had to have a fucking organ and a Leslie, and that is a pain in the ass. That, like, nobody wants to be the friend of the keyboard player at that moment either.
not really. That's very true. I used for many years. I do have a Hammond L100, which is, but it's. I mean, it's still not. It's still not fun. Uh, and I didn't use that a lot. So what I used for touring was a Korg BX3, which had 2 manuals, and but it wasn't like it was cut off, so you could put it in a flight case and so on. But it was still heavy. Right. And then I used a Leslie 142 and a Marshall head, orange head, or a Fender Dual Showman, and instead of the original amp in the Leslie, which sounds fantastic, but it's not loud enough.
Right.
So, and I played with some loud guitar players through the years, and so with an orange head or something like that, you could sort of hear yourself.
Right. And make sure that others could as well.
Yes.
So you have this garage band. Did you guys make recordings in the basement with your teen bands?
Only on, cassette recorders, like, you recorded yourself to see whatever it sounded like. And but when we got a few years older, we did our first demo, kind of like with a more pro guy, local guy that had mixing desk and what was the coolest stuff at the time. So this is early 80s. So in today's world, it wouldn't have been that cool, I guess. But in those days, it was, hey, this is, totally pro to us.
Right, of course.
So
do you remember that feeling the first time you heard something that you played back through some monitors and it was like, whoa,
that's surreal? That was totally surreal.
It's insane, right?
Yeah.
It can also be a real slap in the face.
Ooh, yeah. And right. In that band that I was in, we were a little bit, it differed a little bit, our ages. Like the bass player was older and the vocalist was older, so they had recorded before, but a few others of us, this was our first recording. And right. So you kind of trusted what they said. You're playing the wrong thing there, and think about this when you come to this part of the song or whatever, and you just try to do as good as you could, basically. And
that's great that you had some people with more. I mean, whether people have more experience or not, there's always someone in the band that thinks they know what's best.
Yeah. but that's of course. but it's a good thing. I mean, when you're 14 and 15, it's a big difference if someone is 17.
Oh yeah,
that's a huge difference in those days.
Like 20% more life than you.
Yeah, and a few more demos under their belt.
So did you guys tour around? What was this band called?
It's impossible to translate because there's a movie, classic movie called Kelly's Heroes. Is it
Kelly's Heroes?
Yeah, like okay. No, I can't remember. It's an old US war movie.
Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan's Heroes, yeah, maybe that's. But in Swedish, it was for some reason translated to Kelly's Heroes, and it was a word play on that, and it won't make any sense in English, but it was like a Swedish word play on that.
I watched a lot of that show as a kid because it was the American POWs, and they were always sort of escaping and buffooning the Nazis.
Yeah. So I think it was that. I'm not sure now, but it was just a Swedish word play on that doesn't make sense. So if I would translate it, it would be Kelly's spleens.
You're right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Kelly's organs.
Yeah, something like that, because those two words rhyme rhymes in Swedish.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
But
It is.
teenagers.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a long-lived band. We were around for a few years and practiced a lot, and you learn a lot in those early days. And we played, locally at home or whatever, all the chances that you could get, basically, which was playing at schools or school dance or whatever, and then when I was 15 and you started the Swedish gymnasium, then it became different, because then I played a lot more with different bands, different styles of music, and I was asked to start in a band with a little older people, and they had proper gigs, like playing pubs and stuff, and like blues gigs. They made their own music and and played cover songs of blues and rock and stuff. So then it was so when I was 16, I got to play proper gigs and I got paid to do it, and it was, even if it wasn't, a lot of money, and it was,
Making any money as a musician is
yeah, exactly. It was that was really cool. And also in those days, when people were in a band, they didn't ask the age, so you could just walk into a pub or a bar and
right. I still think it's cool when music pays me.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I still do.
Me too, definitely.
Uh,
So
what was the first tour that you did?
I think like a proper tour was when I first joined like a professional band, and that was my when I started to become like a professional musician. That was in '89. So before that, it was weekend gigs, and a lot of them, I guess, smaller tours. It depends what a tour is. I mean, if you're out for a week or whatever and play different bars around Sweden, I've done that for a few years. But when '89, I started to play with a professional band, and I didn't do anything else. And then it was proper touring with crew and like a production and stuff.
That's great.
So
And at this point, you're
'89, I was 21.
20, 21?
Yeah.
What a great feeling.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it was maybe not outside Scandinavia, or not at all outside Scandinavia, but in Sweden, it was an established band, and a little bit popular all through Scandinavia at the time. So plenty of gigs, and so that was my introduction to being a professional musician, which was really cool. And the main guy, he was, even though he didn't know it, I mean, you sort of watched and learned how it's supposed to be a professional musician.
Right. Yeah, no, those early experiences are always super impressionable,
Yes. Yeah.
So how long did you do that?
Well, I've never done anything else since then.
But I mean that band. Yeah. So how long did you play music?
So no, I was in that band for kind of like 2 years, and then he sort of I played keys in that band. And it was, at the time, it was like a a bigger version of the band. Originally it was a 3-piece kind of Hendrix style band, and then he wanted to expand and have keys, and they had two female vocalists at the time as well. But then as things happened, it became too expensive to have that version of the band on the road, so he downscaled to a quartet, which I was part of for another year, and then it was back to 3-piece, and I was let go, which sucked at the time, but in hindsight it was probably good, because then I could sort of fiddle around with lots of other ideas that I had, try different things out.
So at this point, this is like 92, you said?
Well, in 91
91. You'd been, in addition to playing keys, you'd been playing guitar for a while.
Yeah, I've always done lots of different stuff. So even because that style of music, like the classic rock or Hendrix thing, is the music that I grew up on through my family, and also what was popular, like the classic rock, heavy rock, what was popular when I was growing up as a kid in Sweden, like all the bands, Kiss, Status Quo, Purple, and all that stuff. But in the 80s, I got very, as a lot of other kids, interested in more extreme stuff as well.
Right.
But I didn't play like in any bands really for that, because when I was lured into the live circuit as younger, I thought if you get a little bit of money for traveling around and playing music with people you like and music that you also like, you sort of stick to it, because you think that, or at least I did, that this is cool. It can, I can get better at doing this and maybe get more work, But I always had that interest for other styles of music, lots of it. Anything from progressive rock to crusty hardcore, So
did it seem maybe like there were more opportunities for keyboard gigs than bass or guitar gigs? And also, were you as accomplished of a string, guitar and bass person as a keyboard person?
Not in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, in those days it was, there's always a lot of bass players and guitar players out there. There's gazillions of them.
the famous Keith Richards quote, of course. Yeah. It just takes 3 strings, 2 fingers, and 1 asshole.
Yeah. So lots of those guys out there, but there were quite a few keyboard players out there, especially for that style of music that I played live in the beginning. Then as I got more and more into metal stuff, and then it was less and less of keyboard players out there, especially if you wanted to do like the heavier play on music on the heavier side or extreme side. I guess the few keyboard players that played metal or stuff, they tend to be into the more melodic side of things,
Right.
So I was never into what was referred to as the hair metal stuff, or that was not my thing.
Right.
So I always, as all the extreme metal started to be more popular in the 80s, that was the stuff that I liked from that genre of music, so to speak. So
So early on, as you're playing keyboards, are you gleaning from the guitar players that you're playing with and paying attention and sort of soaking that up for yourself?
Yeah. um, and also I come from a small town, so when you played music, you knew, I mean, most people knew each other, even though they played different styles of music. Most people knew each other, and if it was like a local gig, you would have bands that played all kinds of styles. And so if you would like to learn stuff, you could always ask people actually,
Right.
and have them show you how do you do this, you know. So it was not a big thing, you know. To If you wanted to learn stuff, you could just ask if you could hang out in the older guys rehearsals room.
And they'd be pretty cool with that.
Yeah, so you
That's
could
great. I
just
had
sit.
the good fortune of seeing a lot of older, like they weren't all great musicians, but I was around a lot of older musicians
Yeah,
that could play,
yeah,
cover songs and whatever. So watching them, because as you know, there's no fucking YouTube back then to learn how to play a song. If you could be in a room and watch how someone was doing something, it was
yeah,
a game changer.
yeah. That was amazing. It's like when I was 14 and or something like that, and would you were allowed into a rehearsal room with the guys that were 18 or something like that, 18, 20, and they could play like motherfuckers, all of them, and they could, they could do the whole Made in Japan with Deep Purple, and I was on cloud nine for a week after sitting there and watching that, you know.
I remember like the first dozen concerts I went to, I couldn't understand. Not before I played music, it didn't ever occur to me, but after I started playing and I was going to see live music, it it always blew my mind how they sounded exactly like the record,
Yeah.
mostly the guitar player. And like how does this sound? How is it exactly like the record? Because surely there's something different, right? But I mean, I think only in the last 5 years have I actually finally discovered, like, oh, right, Billy Gibbons could play through anything. He could play through a transistor radio and he's going to sound like himself because
Yeah, yeah,
he's playing.
yeah.
Uh, what was the first concert that you went to that maybe, well, like wasn't with your parents, like you were just with your
Ooh.
peers?
The first concert that I remember that I went to with my parents, that was actually ABBA.
Rad.
Yeah. So in 75.
Wow.
So that was cool. But the first one I went to on my own, that would probably be like in those days in all the Swedish cities, there were like communal parks, kind of for families to do picnics, and they could have a merry-go-round or whatever, and that would be on the weekends, and then they would have concerts with whatever was popular. So that was the Swedish touring circuit in the 70s, obviously more on the summertime of the year, but every city had one of those. So you would have all the popular Swedish artists traveling through Sweden and playing in those places, and it wasn't expensive for to get in either,
Right.
So I saw, you would go there with your buddies to check out whatever was coming through basically. And sometimes they would have bands from Europe or UK or whatever that came through as well, and it was pretty cool. I mean, Motorhead did in like 80, I think it was 84 or 85. They did like a Swedish tour of those places. So they played shitloads of gigs only in Sweden. I mean, they were big in Sweden before that, but it wasn't common that popular bands, and especially not bands within that style of music, would do as many shows in Sweden. You know, they would do a few and then move on to the next country.
Is Mickey D Swedish?
Yeah, he is. He's from Gothenburg.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
We toured with those guys and he turned me on to his fucking chewing tobacco. And it was, I got home and I was just like all spun out and had to quit tobacco, you know, after that tour. I was so pissed.
I quit that. It's 12 years ago now.
It's a popular habit in Sweden.
It is. Yeah.
In America, I mean, I grew up chewing tobacco because I grew up in like a hick town, right?
Yeah.
In America, only hicks chew tobacco. Everyone else smokes.
Yeah. But we're all hicks here. So.
Well, I guess not even hicks. I'm still a hick, but rednecks, like,
Yeah.
you know, 4x4 driving rednecks and
Yeah.
lumberjacks and truck drivers and yeah. I'm still pissed, but do you still think it was a very hard habit to break?
It is, because you're allowed to do it everywhere, compared if you're smoking, which is not allowed everywhere. So
Right.
it's a little bit more difficult in that sense, I guess.
Do you still think about it sometimes?
I know that if I would take one, it'll be good.
Right. True, fair enough. Yeah. Good for you. 12 years.
Yeah.
It's a terrible habit.
It is.
I never smoked, you know. I never smoked because my father and my grandfather both died young from smoking.
Okay.
Like 52.
Okay, sorry to hear that.
I'm just knocking on 52's door right now. You know, I'm fucking 50 this year. I'm not trying to die at 52.
No.
Yeah, crazy. So you saw Motorhead. I know that Mickey D wasn't in the band then, but you saw Motorhead then in 84 or 85.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Then I've seen them countless times through the years.
Yeah.
So,
same.
yeah. And I'm always happy seeing them as well. I love that band. They meant so much to me when I was a kid.
Right.
So.
Do you think that, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's pretty weird music. Like they, you know, they had a real thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you stripped away any of the like perceived maybe elegance of Deep Purple and left the most brutal parts, and maybe, you know,
in that sense they were definitely a lot more connected to like the punk rock movement, but then the actual riffs are very classic rock.
Oh yeah.
So it's a good mixture of things, I think.
Yeah, the delivery is very punk.
Yeah. But the notes that they play are very classic rock, I'd say.
I mean, I love every version of that band.
Yeah, me too.
You've toured with them, yeah?
Not really. I used to be in a band called Opeth, and we shared some crew with Motorhead and tour management. So
who?
I mean, Adam Parsons.
Uh-huh.
And he and yeah, some other guys as well, Coty Allinson. And so we never toured, did a tour with them, but I mean, sometimes when there's festival summers here, you end up on the same cycle, so to speak. So you would play with the same bands all through the summer.
Right.
So that happened quite a few years, actually. since Motorhead always were out.
Did you have many experiences with Phil?
No, not too much. So also because since Mickey is Swedish, he would be the one that you would talk to, basically.
Right.
And
funny fucking dude.
Yeah, but Phil came out to our tour bus a couple of times when we had days off in LA.
Did he stink bomb you?
Nope. He was behaving, and he was very friendly and nice when he came out to our bus.
No, he's the fucking greatest, man. I love that guy so much.
I don't know him at all, actually. So I've said hi.
Yeah.
So.
How did the Opeth gig come to be?
It was through Spiritual Beggars, I'd say. Because I started playing with that band in late 90s, and it was, I knew of Opeth. I liked the band before I knew them, so to speak.
That helps.
Yeah, it does. It's easier to learn the songs then.
For sure.
So it was, I think it was because Mike is the name of the guitar main writer and vocalist in Opeth, and Mike is also the name of the main dude in Spiritual Beggars, who's these days probably more famous for having his band Arch Enemy.
Right.
So that Mike, and he used to be in Carcass as well. So that Mike.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he played with Carcass between, I might be wrong now, so kill me, but 89 or 90 until 92, basically, on a couple of albums. And
it's fucking remarkable to me how little I know about bands. Even my some of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
You probably read the Keith book. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
I didn't know it, like, really anything at all about the Stones. I knew the music just from listening to it my entire life, but I knew nothing. I knew they were English. That's it.
Yeah.
It began and ended there.
And that's a cool book as well. It's good fun to read.
Yeah, remarkable.
Yeah. So,
but doing the sorry for the detour, but doing the podcast is insanely educational for me. So
yeah,
you might have to answer some questions that people will roll their eyes at.
No worries. So I got introduced to Opeth Mike from Beggars Mike.
Nice.
So and then initially, because Spiritual Beggars, they're from the west coast of Sweden, and I live in Stockholm, so east coast. And Opeth, they're from Stockholm as well. And so initially, me and Mike tried to write a few songs to do something for him to do outside of Opeth, just a little project for fun, and because we like to hang out and good vibes. And so we tried to write some music, and then that was before their kind of breakthrough album called Blackwater Park. That was like the first album that they did that they started to tour heavily on. Before that, they had done a few tours, but shorter ones through Europe and festivals, the odd festivals and gigs. But when that album was released, they all of a sudden became a really heavy touring band. So our little project had to wait, and I was busy with with Spiritual Beggars at the time as well. So we toured quite a lot in those days with Beggars through Europe. We've never been to the States with that band, but so then after a while, Mike asked me if I want to play some keys on an Opeth album, and just because they had started to use keys more like a, not an effect, but just a little spice here and there, and on like a more like a production thing.
Right.
So, but he wanted to try and expand on that, and so and they did like a mellow album, more psychedelic rock album without the death metal vocals, and then they needed someone to do the keys for that tour, so that's how it all started.
Right. Rad. How long were you in Opeth?
I played with the band between 03 until 11.
Yeah.
But the first year and the tours, I was more like a live session guy. But then they asked me if I wanted to be part of the band for for the next album, like studio album. So
I know that in the States it's kind of a different vibe, but I love Candlemass. Again, it's a band that I don't know anything about. I couldn't name a person other than you that it appears like that, but it's a band that I like when I'm driving, I'll listen to. Especially there was a live album that I swear I listened to it for a year straight while I was working as a delivery driver, and I just fucking blasted it. That like when I think about it, I just get so fucking excited. Like when I think about that music, I'm almost like a teenager.
yeah, to me, it's definitely a teenager band because they were from the suburbs of Stockholm, basically, and as I'm from a hick town northwest of Stockholm, and they're a little bit older than me. Like when their first album was put out, I'd never heard anything like it because it wasn't easy to find underground music in those days, even when you knew where to look, so to speak. I mean, obviously there were American doom bands like Saint Vitus and Trouble, and also Pentagram, but I mean their albums hadn't even been released by then, you know, and the Obsessed, they were not active either. So when Candlemass' first album came out in '85, that was mind-blowing to hear that. It's so heavy.
No, it's
so heavy. So that was super cool, and it was also cool personally. You know, you like different styles of music, and in Sweden or Swedish hard rock were like the kind of stuff that we were famous for in those days were obviously Europe and a few other bands as well, which are more on the, you know, nice side of things musically. Right. And so when I heard Candlemass, it was like, yeah, the Swedish band for me, you know. So
well, do you think that growing up with jazz playing as a kid, because jazz music runs the gamut of being melodic, chaotic, and also very heavy.
Yeah.
Like it took me a long time because there wasn't jazz music playing when I was a kid to appreciate jazz music and to appreciate that heavy music comes in many forms.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's rare that I analyze my own taste, so to speak. But when you say it that could definitely be one of the reasons why I've always leaned towards the more extreme stuff when it comes to metal and punk and stuff like that.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. So
Yeah.
I do, I like power pop and stuff like that, like bands like Cheap Trick and every, classic.
What's not to like?
I mean, so it's not that, it's just, I think within the what you would call the metal spectrum of things, I would kind of lean towards the more dirty stuff, so to speak.
I think that even a lot of the melodic Pink Floyd stuff is heavy, just because the content of the music content is heavy by nature.
Yeah, I understand, totally agree. It doesn't have to be. It can feel heavy, although it's not, played heavy metal heavy.
Right.
So
yeah, I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
In the same sense, I think that your EP sounds, it has a it has a weight to it, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
Will you tell me how it came together?
It's I did my first solo album a few years back, and it wasn't like a planned thing at all. It was just me fiddling around with music and realizing that I had a few songs that were in the same ballpark, so to speak, but it wouldn't, I didn't want to redo them in a certain way just to make them fit with what I was playing with at the time. So I just thought, okay, so maybe this is a new thing then. And then I'm a coward, so I never thought about releasing it under my own name, because I'm a band guy,
right?
So the first thing that I think about when I write music is like, does this fit with any of the bands that I play with, or is this a new thing, new project or band or whatever? So I never thought about until later. A friend of mine had the same problem here, and we were having coffee, and he was saying that, I think I'm going to release this under my own name, which is kind of scary.
Sure.
So, and I thought, I remember I said, yeah, I'm still trying to come up with a name for the stuff that I've done. So, and I never did. And then I thought, okay, it's closer to retirement to starting out, so maybe I should do one of these albums under my own. So let's go with it. So I did that, and then it felt kind of cool, although I was scared because I've never done anything like it. And then I was thinking that, because I didn't know if I was gonna, play live or try to get, touring gigs or whatever with it. It was a little bit, that was never the intention, really. It was just to get the music out there and see how it felt, can I do anything with this? And then I felt like, no, I should try to play some gigs. So I suggested to the label that, are you up for releasing an EP? I could do that. I could, record that fairly quickly, and then I could start to look for gigs, maybe on my own, do kind of acoustic versions of something, or if you could find some people that would, agree to play a few shows or whatever. So I did that, but then this pandemic thing came. So
what's that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a thing we got over here.
Yeah.
I've read that you guys had it as well. I'm not sure if it had.
Never heard of it.
No. So then it was the release and the mix and everything was, pushed back. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just happy that it's out now. And
so it was actually recorded before the pandemic.
A lot of it was, but then last year when you started to understand what was going to happen, or actually what's not going to happen, it was like I wasn't in a rush to finish it, but it's been mixed since September last year.
Right.
So, but it's cool. I'm just happy that it's out. I'm really happy with how it came out, and all of it is written with from. I mean, the whole idea came from a song from the first album, actually. So, if you want to be super nerdy, and you should listen to a song called Anything Anywhere the Blood Flows on the first album, and then the EP. Then you get the whole, because all the lyrics are tied in with that.
Okay.
So it's like a very loose, vague story about afterlife, kind of.
It seemed very I mean, the subject matter is obviously timeless, but it seemed very timely to come out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I love that the song titles, roll in through the whole title of the EP.
Yeah.
I just, any thought that goes into things like that, I love.
Well, the ambition was for it to be like one song,
right?
Like a long journey, kind of.
Right. It also has, and perhaps it's because most of your singing is low, but it has like some goth. It has like doom and goth vibes, and were you a goth kid? Like, did you like goth? Because a lot of goth is synth heavy, right?
Yeah.
Did that have any appeal to you as a young person? And still,
it did, and it does, because when you grow up in a small town, you know how it is. Then it's like anything that's not mainstream is cool,
right?
So when when I was a teenager, let's say when you would go out to gigs and meet other people, like when you're like 15 years old and you start to go out and see shows and meet other people, I think when you're from a small town, it doesn't matter if you're into punk, metal, or goth or whatever at the time, because you're all the outcasts, aren't you? Right. So if you would go to like those teenage house parties or whatever, you would find people from all genres there,
right?
So and you would hear all that different kind of music as well. So it wasn't weird to hear Deep Purple, Susie and the Banshees, The Cure, and The Clash, or all those, The Damned, or Discharge, more extreme punk or whatever, in next to each other on those parties. So it wasn't, so that has always been a part of what I've listened to in some way or the other.
How did you go about filling out all the sounds? And tell me, what did you perform on the album?
Everything except for drums.
Everything?
Yeah. And it's the same on the first album as well.
I love your guitar playing.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
It's fucking great.
Cool.
How awesome is that feeling? And what challenges do you find? Because when you're in a room and you're bouncing ideas, you might be inspired by one part, or you might create a counter melody or a counter, a complementary part to someone else's thought, right? And when you're when you're generating all of the creative ideas when you are the genesis, um it's a completely different experience. What were the easy parts for you, and what were the hard parts for you?
The easy part is that no one says no
Right.
to any idea. But to me, music has always been, for me to, good music is always like a dialogue, either between
Right.
the musicians or between the performer and the audience. You know, it should be a dialogue. A monologue is not that interesting to me. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why I always hesitated to do like a solo thing, because it became so it sounds so I don't know the correct word, but there's so much at stake, you know, when you say a solo thing. It's so
Right.
but it's not really. It's just when you overcome that feeling, I guess, because I'm so used to bouncing things with ideas with other musicians, and that's what I always thought was so much fun in a band as well, you know, to interact with each other. So it is difficult when you come up with a part and then you try to pick your brain about what should the bass do, or what should the other keyboard do, or what, you know, to kind of, should I react or follow, you know, or that's
Did,
difficult.
did you do most of the writing on keys or on guitar, or was it a mix of all of that? And how did the arrangements come? Because it sounds very, or it sounds like a band got into a room and worked it out.
Yeah. I except there's one song that I did on keys. Usually when I write music or come up with riffs or parts, whatever, it's usually on guitar, because it's handy, and you sit on the couch and you reach for a guitar and you strum along a little bit and see what happens.
You need a keytar.
No, I don't. It's only Jan Hammer who looks good with those. But, so usually I write on guitar, and the first, second, and the fourth song on this EP, they're written on guitar. The third song was an experiment, because I'd never done, you know, like, I love improv music, a lot of free form stuff, and I would like to do more of do more of it myself. But this was I just set a timer for 6 minutes, and then I thought I'd play something on the piano and do 3 takes, but not edit them, and listen back and see which one I like the most, you know, or whatever I could do something with later on. So I just did 3 takes for 6 minutes, like totally, you know, free stuff,
Yeah.
and listen back and liked one of them and erased the other 2, so I couldn't second guess myself, and saved that, and then I arranged other keyboards and voices according to the improvisation.
Right. I like that you picked one, stuck with it, and deleted the other two, because how much, especially when, you know, earlier you said the easy part was no one says no, but also the hard part is no one says no, right? So you have
Yeah,
this opportunity in the modern recording world
yeah,
to really overthink things, and as I like to say, finger fuck things
yeah.
to
I know.
death, right? There's a lot of that opportunity, but you committed and you stuck to it.
That's one of the things. If I would pat myself on the back, I would say I'm pretty good with that. I'm not into recording 10 takes and sit pick and choose so much afterwards. Sometimes I'd say I'd save the stuff that I'm think is good, and then you record the final part of something, a new take on that, so to speak. But I don't like to sit and choose between takes so much.
When you are not writing, like I'm basically telling you what I do right now, but I'm going to pose it as a question. When you
Yeah.
are recording a part that you have not previously composed a section, you know, like when you're tracking,
Yeah.
you don't have a committed part. Will you piece it all together, learn it as you did it? You know, like make a comp, learn it as the comp exists, and then play it as a single pass?
I've done that.
Yeah,
It differs. It differs a lot how I do things, actually, depending on what style of music it is. Um, but I've done that, and then it's also the classic thing. If you're supposed to do solo, you know,
right,
I'd 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 rather do. I mean, the ambition is always to do the whole solo.
right,
Then it's very rare that that happens, because you get, when you listen to something, you get an idea and you want to try that idea, and and maybe, okay, I can use this little part and put it in the old one, you know, and it'll be cooler. But usually I go for playing the whole solo.
I think it's best. It just
Yeah.
feels good, right?
Is there, if it's a long one, you have to compromise sometimes,
Sure.
because it depends on what the music sounds like, and the timing, and everything as well. I mean, if you're recording as a band and you track together with other people, it's very rare that you would sort of fix it afterwards, because then it's a lot easier, I think, to record a solo, for instance. But when you sit on your own and you get sent tracks to record to, there's always a lot more thinking going on than if you would do it together with other people.
Right.
So
I remember the first time that I saw someone create a comp on a tape machine, you know, not
yeah.
Pro Tools, and I was, you know, I was fucking dazzled.
Yeah.
It's like a dark art, that shit, you know.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
There's no visual.
Yeah, it's no, it's different in those days compared to now, of course, but
Right. Fucking tape edits.
yeah.
Good riddance.
Yeah. Impressive to watch people with, you know, pieces of tape on their shoulders and whatever, and then put it together. That was how is
Insane.
that possible?
How do you even remember which end goes where?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I would get, I can barely plug my amp in.
Yeah.
That's very obvious.
Yeah.
What is the vibe in Sweden as far as are you wearing a mask when you go to the grocery store, and are gay, like are there festivals? Is Sweden Rock back this year?
No.
No,
Um,
2022.
yes. Lots, like all the big festivals, they moved to 2022. I think you can do like smaller outdoor gigs this summer. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, I think. But regarding the mask wearing, it's not even, you know, like a law or anything. It's what they
Right.
call a recommendation. So it's up to you if you want to wear a mask or not. And I wear a mask when I go to the grocery store and use public transportation, um, which is not a lot these days. I live fairly close to the center, or close to Stockholm city, so to speak. So it's nicer to walk a lot of times. But I use that. A lot of people don't, um, for whatever reason. I don't know.
Right.
I guess there's a serious lack of empathy here. So I don't know. It's never been a problem for me. If in North America, it seems like it's also like political or religious thing to not wear a mask or wear a mask, and I won't go into that, but I don't think that's the reason here. Actually, I think people just don't care, or they think that it'll never happen to me,
Right.
or I will never spread it to anyone else if I got it.
Right.
So
Yeah, unfortunately, every fucking thing here becomes political for some reason.
yeah, it's a
Hopefully,
big country. So
it's a big country with a lot of people with
yeah,
a varying, you know, a kaleidoscope of ideas.
yeah, exactly. So
You know,
there's been very different recommendations and rules depending in all our Scandinavian countries as well. So I think Sweden has got a lot of flack because of how late in the game we were with rules and recommendations, and also how it has been handled since then. So Denmark and Norway they both have had more strict policies regarding this than Sweden, Finland as well, I would say. So I don't know.
um, what are your plans for playing? Do you have some outdoor gigs coming up this summer?
Um, Maybe, hopefully, I'm not counting on anything.
Right.
Possibly, I play bass in a Swedish band called Kamchatka, which is a three-piece blues rock band, and we might play a couple of gigs later this summer outdoors. I hope. Uh,
How long has it been since you played a gig?
I actually played one October last year
Oh,
at
great.
a small club in Stockholm. I was guesting with friends of mine that uh, has a really cool band, play more 70s kraut rock kind of can Kraftwerk stuff, and I was guesting with them in a small club, and it was at a time where where COVID was down, so they started to open up a little bit and allowed people to have concerts again, seated audience obviously, and a certain amount of people depending on how big the venue is, of course. But that was the last time I played a gig. We did a live stream with that Kamchatka band months ago, kind of. But I mean, they're cool. I don't watch too many of them myself, to be honest. It's still not, for me. It's still not the. It's difficult to get the same energy as
Right.
like a regular live gig. But it's good fun anyway to get together and play, and in a more serious way than
Right.
rehearsal room, so to speak. So I don't know. I hope there won't be too many streaming gigs in the future. No,
Or
not
the
because they suck, because you hope that it would get back to
right.
better, you know. So
If the gigs are streaming, I hope that they're in front of crowds.
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah,
You know,
that's a different story.
audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the energy, just having an audience creates a different energy, right?
It does, and not because of being lazy, but it keeps you on your toes in a totally different way than
Right.
if you're playing to no one.
Right.
So
Well, it's a lot easier to feel at ease and comfortable about physically and enthusiastically performing when there's something in front of you besides cameras, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Making a
because
video
again,
is always an awkward thing. You're like,
yeah,
you know,
with and it's like with this, I've seen myself in Zoom meetings. It's like, why would you spend money on a live stream to see this? So, but but it's like you get an immediate reaction when you do something in front of a crowd,
right.
and good or bad, or whatever. But it means that you react to something and you start to do things, and yeah, it's it's something else, definitely.
Well, I guess worth noting, you appear on 2 unreleased thus far, or will appear on 2 yet to be released Couch Riffs episodes. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having me.
They're both pretty epic songs. We won't name them here because they're not out yet. But
No.
but the one was very ambitious. They're both pretty ambitious, but
Yeah.
one, I'm hoping, by the way, that it's done mid-July. I'm
Cool.
waiting on vocals at this point.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. It'll be super fun to hear that.
It was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of musicians to do their parts.
It was a foolish idea. And I knew it going into it, but nothing has changed my mind. Once I got started, nothing about getting it done has changed my mind from it being a foolish idea. But um, it's it's a charity thing for roadie
Yeah.
relief, and I think that yeah. So thank you. You killed it, of course. I can't wait to see what you do on the other one.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm trying to get going with that uh, in the very near future. So,
Um, a question about your airport. Am I
yeah.
remembering this right? Is there are there did I rent a little cubby room there? Or like I feel like I rented when in my sleep deprived stupor like a room to sleep in, like a sleeping room that had bunk beds. Is that
I'm not sure if that's.
you probably would never even walk over to that section of the airport because you're coming from home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the only airport I've ever been to where I think they had that.
I think I've done that in Helsinki, in Finland.
Really?
Yeah,
That is
but those look like eggs, kind
oh,
of. It was like you lift a hood and you crawl in, and then you rent that space for whatever, an hour or whatever it is, and then you sleep there for a while.
no, this was like a room. It even had a shower. It was just
Aha,
like,
okay,
it had a shower and a toilet and like a very, very small bathroom.
okay,
And then a very small room with a bunk bed, 2 beds like stacked.
okay. I wonder where that was.
That shit is very considerate,
Yeah, it sounds like a good thing to have in an airport.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, go figure. I
yeah.
I didn't I swear that would have been in Gothenburg.
Then I wouldn't know.
Where would I have flown in to go to Sweden Rock?
Uh, Copenhagen or uh, Copenhagen or yeah, Copenhagen is probably in Denmark is probably the closest, even though it's in a different country.
I don't think that we flew into Copenhagen though.
Then it would
I swear
maybe
it was
maybe
I feel like it was on the water.
mm,
Um, and it was beautiful. It reminded me of Seattle or Vancouver. You know, there were there were islands
Okay.
flying in.
Hmm. I'm not sure.
No.
Uh, the Gothenburg airport is not close to the water.
Well,
And Stockholm, we have one smaller one which is fairly close to the city center actually. So that would be um, in a sense close to the water. And then the big one, which is called Arlanda, is like 25 minutes outside of town with a express train.
right. I
But
think
that would be a long drive to go down to Sweden Rock.
we flew up.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we flew from Stockholm to somewhere close to Sweden Rock, and then
Okay. It's probably called Ronneby.
um but I think it was Stockholm where the
Yeah, but then it's probably the big airport.
right
Yeah,
where we had our little room.
yeah. It
Huh.
sounds comfy though.
It is fucking luxury, man. I just
Yeah.
like that was the impression that I left with. I was like, this is the fucking best.
Yeah. Well, that's a good impression.
um well, listen, thank you so much, man. I fucking I love the EP. I'm gonna spin it a bunch more. Um, is it available on physical format? Can I order it on vinyl?
You should. I've seen. I can't remember now, but there should be some copies. They did a very small run of
Great,
vinyl, but I know that some carry it in the States.
wonderful.
Yeah, and but I can't name like a particular uh, record store now that has it. But it's
I'll
just
Google it.
yeah,
And I'll put a link as well in the description of the podcast.
okay. Wow, thanks.
Um, hopefully get some people over buying those copies up.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Um, it's so early here.
yeah,
I'm kind of just waking up really because I finally finished my coffee.
yeah. It's time for another coffee for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
But I really appreciate you making time to talk with me, and I can't wait to get these videos out.
yeah.
I think
That'll be fun.
I think people are really going to enjoy both of them. They both have uh, they're both staffed with great players.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's lots of great musicians on there.
it's great. Yeah, I love it. That's it's a really fun thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully next year I'll see you out on the road.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Because next year I'm hoping to be getting busy.
Yeah, me too.
And and I'm slated to be in Europe. So I'm going to keep tabs on you, and
Yeah,
hopefully we'll cross paths at a festival or some other such place.
absolutely.
Awesome. Um, and hey, would you do me a favor? Do you have any high res photos of yourself, either promotional shots or you on stage performing that you
Yeah,
could
sure.
share with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also, if you could send me your shirt size and your address,
I will do that.
I have some things to send to you, some
Wow.
parting gifts. Not that there's too many podcasts and too many podcast guests for me to send these packages out. These packages go out to people who perform in the videos.
Ah, okay, cool.
So I have some things to send for you. Some things
Wow.
for the trophy room, some wearables, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
that's very nice.
Um Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sending me that information, I'll get something out to you soon.
I'll do that.
Right on. You're fucking great.
you, you too. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
Um, Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day. I can't believe we didn't even talk about art. I'm a boob and it's early.
It is, but well, it's good. Then we have something to talk about in the future as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, bud. Have a great day, and I hope that we cross paths soon.
Yeah. Thanks. You too. Best.